If you're an attorney, an engineer, a government analyst, a consultant, a physician, or someone whose career revolves around identifying risk and finding flaws, that very skill that makes you successful at your job may be the thing preventing you from buying the right home in Northern Virginia. After more than 20 years helping buyers across Arlington, Alexandria, Falls Church, Fairfax County, McLean, Vienna, and all throughout Northern Virginia, I've noticed something fascinating. The smartest buyers often struggle the most, not because they don't understand the numbers or the process, but because they understand the risks and they keep waiting for certainty. The problem is certainty never arrives in the real estate market. Today I want to talk about why smart buyers freeze, why they miss opportunities, overthink, and why they lose homes that they genuinely love. This isn't really a real estate video. It's actually a decision-making video. And if you've ever stayed awake wondering whether you're about to make the biggest financial mistake of your life, you're going to recognize yourself somewhere in this conversation. Several years ago, I worked with a Northern Virginia couple who found a house that they really, really loved. It was not a perfect house. No house is perfect, but it checked almost every box. Great neighborhood, good schools, comfortable commute, and a reasonable price with enough room to grow. This kind of home does not show up every weekend. We sat down and reviewed everything. Comparable sales, market conditions, strengths, weaknesses, pros and cons, potential risks, future resale, and everything looked solid. And then they said something that I've heard dozens and dozens of times. Brian, we just need one more weekend. Well, one weekend became 2, then 4, and then the home sold. About a year later, they were still looking. And what struck me wasn't that they lost that particular house. What really struck me was that they never found one that they liked more. They eventually did buy a house. And that experience stayed with me. Many buyers believe the greatest danger is moving too fast. However, sometimes the greatest danger is actually moving too slowly. Before real estate, I spent several years practicing law. I worked at a real estate law firm, and I've also spent years managing one of the busiest RE/MAX offices in Northern Virginia. I've watched thousands of buyers make decisions, often under pressure, and over time, something became clear. The contracts are not the interesting part. The psychology is. The market changes, but human behavior does not. Once you've seen enough transactions, patterns start jumping out at you. One of the most surprising things I've observed is that the number of houses someone sees has almost no relationship to whether they make a good decision or not. I once worked with a couple who looked at more than 30 homes. Every weekend, every new listing, Arlington, Alexandria, Falls Church, Fairfax, Vienna, McLean. They analyzed everything. They had a spreadsheet, school ratings, commutes, tax records, future appreciation, lot sizes, floor plans, neighborhood rankings. Months went by. And strangely, the more information they gathered, the less confident and sure they became. And then I've had buyers who saw 2 homes. The second one was the one. They walked through, they looked at each other and said, "This just feels right." The difference was not intelligence. The difference was clarity. One couple was searching for a house. The other couple was searching for certainty. And certainty, like I said, does not exist. In a minute, I'm going to explain the 4 different types of buyer freeze I see repeatedly. And one of them may completely change how you think about your own home search in Northern Virginia. There's something that I call the ghost of 2008. It's a while ago, but let's address this elephant in the room. I lived through it, I worked through it, I sold through it, clients through it, and I managed an office through it. And sometimes today I see the exact same look in buyers' eyes. Not because the market today is the same as it was in 2008. It is not. But because the fear is the same. The fear of being the person who got it wrong. And the fear of buying right before something bad happens. What 2008 taught me wasn't that buyers should avoid risk. It taught me that every decision carries risk. Buying carries risk, waiting carries risk, moving carries risk, and staying put also carries risk. There is no risk-free option in the real estate market. So the challenge isn't avoiding risk altogether. The challenge is understanding it. It's a very different mindset. Next, there's something that I call the Zillow Trap. I think that Zillow has created an entirely new type of buyer paralysis. At some point, buyers stop evaluating houses and they start consuming houses as a commodity. The search becomes entertainment, like Netflix. Swipe, next house. Swipe, next house. Swipe, next house. Could be like a dating app. And eventually, your brain starts telling you, there must be something better. There must be something better. There must be something better. The problem is that possibility becomes more attractive than reality. I've seen buyers reject excellent opportunities because they became addicted to keeping their options open. Swipe. The search itself became their hobby. I think there's 4 types of buyer freeze. I've noticed these patterns over the years. There's the economist. The economist is always waiting. Rates will come down, prices will soften, inventory will improve. A better opportunity is always 6 months away. Problem? We don't have a crystal ball. Sometimes 6 months becomes 3 years. Then there's the perfectionist. Every house has a flaw. The kitchen is not ideal. The lot is not ideal. The commute is not ideal. The perfectionist compares reality against imagination, and reality loses every time. Then there's the trauma buyer. This may be a bad investment. Maybe they had parents who lost money. Maybe a painful financial experience. Fear isn't really about this house. It's about an old wound. Then there's the exhausted buyer. And this one is more common than people realize. 20 showings, 3, 4 failed offers, weeks of poring over Zillow, arguments with their spouse, disappointment. At some point, they stop evaluating homes rationally. They're simply tired. And exhausted people rarely make their clearest decisions. Quick question, which one are you? The economist, the perfectionist, the trauma buyer, the exhausted buyer? Let me know in the comments. I promise you're not alone. One of the easiest buyers that I ever worked with wasn't easy because he was flexible. He was easy because he was clear on what he wanted. He wanted 3 things: walkability, metro access, and low maintenance. That's it. Everything else was secondary. So when the right property appeared, he recognized it immediately, not because the house was perfect, but because it aligned with his priorities. And that's a lesson that many buyers miss. Clarity doesn't come from seeing more houses. Clarity comes from understanding yourself and what you're looking for in Northern Virginia. Let's talk about something almost nobody discusses honestly: spouses. I've seen this time after time. One spouse says they want Arlington. The other wants Springfield, or maybe even Ashburn. One wants walkability, the other wants a bigger yard. One spouse wants excitement, while the other wants quiet. And it looks like they're arguing about a house. They're not. They're arguing about the future. They're arguing about identity and lifestyle and what success looks like. One spouse is buying convenience. The other is buying peace. One spouse is buying community, while the other is buying square footage. I often have spouses sit in the same room and make their lists and then compare it and show it to me so we could see if they're on the same page. Part of my role is helping these buyers understand what they're actually debating. Once you separate house problems from life problems, decisions can become much clearer. I once worked with buyers who thought they were searching for a home, but they were really searching for a life. They weren't sure if they wanted urban or suburban, condo or townhouse, walkability or space, schools or commute. What looked like indecision was actually self-discovery, completely normal. Sometimes Northern Virginia buyers tell me, Brian, we just haven't found the right house. And privately, I'm thinking to myself, the house is not the problem yet. We haven't figured out your priorities. By the way, if you're trying to figure out Arlington versus Alexandria versus Falls Church versus Fairfax, send me an email or watch some of my other videos. I've created neighborhood resources specifically designed around lifestyle fit, not just prices and square footage. Where you live affects your daily happiness far more than most people realize. One misconception about real estate agents is that our job is opening up doors to houses. That's maybe 15 to 20% of the job. The real job, the real work is helping people make good decisions under uncertainty. Recently, I worked with a buyer looking at a condo in Arlington. They were extremely worried about overpaying, not because the numbers did not work, but because they feared that they would be the person who bought at the wrong time. So we went through everything: comparable sales, building finances, days on the market, competing inventory, future resale considerations. The conversation was not really about price. It was about confidence. It was about seeing the value. I had another buyer in Alexandria looking at a home that they loved, and their concern wasn't the house. Their concern was whether they could emotionally commit. Again, that's not really a real estate problem. That's a decision-making problem. The goal is not certainty. The goal, as I keep saying, is clarity. Clarity leads to action. One of the most memorable phone calls I ever received came from a buyer who never bought. They ended up calling me 2 years later, not because they now wanted to move. It was because they had driven through the neighborhood where they had almost purchased. They wanted to know what homes were selling for now. What bothered them wasn't the appreciation that they missed out on. It wasn't the money. What bothered them was realizing that they had actually found what they had wanted in the first place. They just couldn't see it at the time. That conversation has stayed with me. Opportunity often looks uncertain when it's standing right in front of us. Only later does it appear obvious. After 20 plus years in the real estate business in Northern Virginia, I've noticed something. Almost nobody calls me 5 years, 10 years later and says, "Brian, I wish I had offered $15,000 less on that home." What they say instead is, "I wish we had trusted ourselves. I wish we had stopped overthinking. I wish we had moved sooner. I wish we had recognized what we had." Those are the regrets that linger. Every Northern Virginia buyer thinks the challenge is finding the right house. After so many years in the real estate business, I think the bigger challenge is learning how to make thoughtful decisions when certainty doesn't exist. If you're currently frozen, if you're afraid of making a mistake, if you're waiting for complete certainty, I would encourage you to stop asking, "How do I eliminate uncertainty?" and start asking, "Do I understand the risks well enough to make a thoughtful, educated decision?" If you're thinking about buying or moving anywhere in Northern Virginia, and you would like help thinking through both the practical and emotional side of the process, I would be happy to help. And if this conversation resonates with you, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. On this channel, we don't just talk about houses, we talk about the people making some of the biggest decisions of their lives.